Hi, everyone, and welcome to everyone watching this from the Global GHK Foundation. It is wonderful to be here, and I'm Andy Lockmears, and I'm thrilled to be here with Saman, who has an amazing story to tell us, and I'm here to share that journey with her as she tells us about her life and her births. Saman, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Andy.
Hi.
I'm so thrilled to be here. And it's kind of really, I mean, I've been watching your videos for a while now, and it's really, it's an honor to be sitting in front of you and having this conversation um, because there's something that I really, really value, which is authenticity. And I've seen that in your conversations. They are very they are very authentic, and they allow the person to be very authentic. And
Mm,
when I think about this, so I have four children. She's my eldest. She just turned 6. This is Kyra. And when I think of what is it that I can pass on to my children, really, I think it's just this value of being true to who you are and just
mm,
speaking truth. And I think we will be able to really wonderfully connect it with our conversation on GHK because when you're not being honest, your body can tell. And so it tells you just exactly where you need to do your inner work. And yeah, so yeah, thank you for guiding me through this. And yeah, I'd love to share my story.
it's my pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to hearing it since I haven't heard it yet. So I'm excited too. So start us at the beginning. I believe it, well, you go ahead and start at your beginning.
So
Mm.
I come from I'm Indian. I come from a city called Delhi, which is the capital of India, the
Yep,
largest democracy in the world. Um, I was born in a Muslim family. I'm a believing, practicing Muslim.
yep.
And my parents had a very, they brought me up in a very integrated way. And they really valued my opinion right from the start. Bless you. Alhamdulillah. So, for me, I think it was always very important to speak my truth.
Mm,
But there was always this thing that I always wanted it uh, to never offend anyone. You know, like yeah, we have a phrase for it now. Like I was a people pleaser, but I was also a rebel. So even in every act of my rebellion, I would like kind of put in a lot of efforts to make sure that everybody was on board. Um, so, but that required me to work extra hard, like I had to earn that act of rebellion, so to say, whatever that was, by doing a lot of things which good girls do. So I had everything ticked off. I was really good in my academics. I was very presentable. I'd be very social. I'd be making those conversations. I was traveling the world. I was deep into activism, political activism. I was working with the farmers movement. I did my graduation in psychology. Then I went to do my master's in social work. I worked with a lot of NGOs. I used to write. I used to find like 100 ways to express myself. And yet there was something that remained inside, you know.
yep.
Things that I thought would may create a kind of a disharmony around me.
Right.
And
Yep.
I didn't want that. I'm really somebody who would want to serve people, want to be of service, want to, put others' needs before my own. Um, and But I was very I could never turn off that voice within, that intuition, that gut feeling, because I
Yep.
knew that if I did that, I would be unhappy and I will not be like it would just show on my face.
Yep.
So, uh, So, I've kind of really grown up with this cocktail of emotions.
Yep.
And uh, so when I was doing all of this and I was center stage and there were these public speeches that I was giving in front of thousands of people, and I was also a part of a political movement, and I'd go on the television, and I was a spokesperson for the party that I was representing. And all of this was happening, and then with this feeling of feeling hollow and feeling something was amiss, something I was also feeling like lost. And these, and that's when I met my husband.
Yep.
And that was in 2016. I was hosting an event for homeless people in the winters in Delhi, where we invited a lot of people from the mainstream society to actually come and spend a night on the footpath along with the homeless people.
Wow.
And just so you're not just intellectually understanding what they're going through, but
Mhm.
actually sitting in what it feels when you're sitting without anything to cover you on the top, and with the with the road
Right.
right next with all the, yeah. So he
Wow.
happened to be one of the 200 people who came that day. And there was just this, there was this thing. I mean, we had this connect like immediately, which we never found the words for.
Yep.
And I often kind of think, that song Strangers in the Night,
Yep.
that really fits well in that situation. And even
I love
through
it.
that night, while I was talking to journalists, I was talking to those 200 people. We did not really talk, but there was this huge, traction that we could feel.
Yep.
And then we had a follow up event the next day in an auditorium, so, and he came. We didn't have a phone. And the first thing he comes and says to me is, I like you, right? And those are the first words. And we've been together since, and
Oh my
it's been like,
God.
yeah, we have been together every single day since then.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
But having said that, I have to admit, and this is where, all everything is going to kind of come in, is that while we are aligned energetically and on the big questions of life, we've never had to discuss it. We've always found it difficult to have a conversation.
oh,
Like,
that's interesting.
yeah. And it's only now that I realize that language as a tool has not worked for us.
Ah,
And I was a person of words and communication. I thought that was my forte, you know.
yep.
But
Yep.
with my husband, uh, we just could not make a conversation without offending each other, really.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so we never spoke about these things, that how we would want to birth our babies, or if we wanted to be. We just one fine day I asked him and I said, "Do you like to get married?" And he said, "Okay." I said, "How about this Friday?" And he said, that's fine with me. And I tell my parents, and my brother flies down from Australia for 4 days, and within the next 2 days we get married, and then we have a baby the same year. And then ever since we've been making babies. We've been married for almost 7 years, and we have 4 babies.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I
Yeah.
commend you. That is not the usual here, especially in the United States. So I commend you. That's amazing.
Thank you. And so the first time that I get pregnant, and I'm so excited about this, and this is the other part of my story, that I have been very fascinated about creation of life. Like, if I would just look at a pregnant woman, I'd be so, I'd just keep looking, and I'd be wondering, how would she feel? How would one feel to carry a life inside of you,
Yeah.
like in
Yeah.
terms of sensations, like can you actually feel two heartbeats? Like, it
Mhm.
was always this thing on my, and I remember even as a child, since I was as old as her, I would love picking on children. And I'd say that I'm going to, when I grow up, I'm going to have 11 of my own. I'm going to have my own soccer team. And also because my father happens to be the youngest of 11 siblings. So I thought,
Wow.
well, that seems possible.
Wow.
So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And, but slowly as you grow up, people don't take you seriously. And they might have found it cute when I was her age, and
Right.
they would ignore it when I was probably 16. But by the time I was 26 and I was, still not out of my, this parallel reality that I was living in,
Yep.
people thought that I was naive. I wasn't being, I wasn't
Okay.
making the best of decisions about my
Right.
life.
Right.
So,
All right. So you
yeah.
were deciding to have children and you wanted a lot of children and you were not getting a lot of support for that.
Not just about children. Basically, I grew up in a family with bureaucrats and professors, and
Right.
I was doing my masters. I was enrolled in a PhD, and then I started talking about homeschooling children, and then
Yep.
to my cousins who were having babies, and I was like, the education system is all messed up, and why don't you
Yep.
consider homeschooling? And they said, we'll talk about it when you have children, and the other thing was. So the basically the first time that I get pregnant, and the first thing is my father and all his siblings were born at home, and I was like, then why can't have I have babies at home? And that seemed such a bizarre proposition to everybody. Um, and then I actually went on hunting for a midwife, and I couldn't find one.
Yep.
So within the span of my pregnancy, of those few months, I must have met over a dozen doctors, because every time I would go to a new doctor, and just it would just not feel right.
Mm.
I
Yep.
was so excited about being pregnant and carrying this life, and they would just somehow look at me like I was sick, like I
Ah,
needed help, like I was a victim and
yep.
I needed to be rescued. And it didn't make sense.
Yep.
But it was difficult for me to, I don't like confrontations and arguing and stuff. It uh, it doesn't feel good
Right.
inside. So I
Yep.
would just keep hopping from one doctor to another and saying, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't feel right. I'm not doing this. And so by the time I was just towards the fag end of my pregnancy, yeah, another thing, we used to host some tourists who used to come to my house.
Mm.
And they were all travelers from America. There's
Oh,
a traveling company called OAT, and they organize these tours, and they look for more than just going to those nice places that any city has to offer, and they look for experiences. So
yep.
I live in a 2 century old house in the heart of Old Delhi,
Oh, wow.
and which was and it was a very interesting space. And so I got in touch with somebody, and they said, why don't you host these travelers, and they
Yeah.
can come and have a conversation with you just for an hour. And I must have hosted about more, like around 2000 Americans, I think, in my house.
Oh, gosh.
4 years, yeah.
Norman, that's
And
amazing.
ah, and it would be just so interesting, and
Yeah.
would love having those conversations, because somehow I think in our country, in our culture, we are not used to having a very straight up conversation. So they would ask me questions, and that would allow me the opportunity to actually express myself.
Yep. Yep. So you
And
you found your voice, right? That voice that had always been there.
yeah, yeah,
You
in,
found it
in
with
that,
that.
yeah. And so, one of the tourists there told me about her experience with, so her daughter got vaccinated and got vaccine injured and developed autism. And she did a research for about seven. She'd already invested about 7 years in it. And she told me to really look into vaccines. And this is 2018. So
Okay.
me and my husband, Karan, we read up everything there was to read about. We were following everybody, all the YouTube channels, and we watched every possible documentary that was still available online. And that's how we did a lot of homework on vaccines. And and also, because I was still enrolled in a PhD, I met somebody who spoke to me about something called a lotus birth, where when a baby's, so I was pregnant, and during the workshop, I met somebody from the Netherlands, and they had with their youngest daughter, they practiced a ritual called lotus birth, that when you birth the baby and then the cord comes out and then you birth the placenta. So they don't disconnect the cord from the placenta at all. They just wait for it to come off, dry up and come off on its own, which could take a few days. So
Oh,
you
wow.
actually holding the placenta and the baby
Oh,
and
wow.
still
Okay.
through the, and it could take anywhere between 3 to 10 days depending on the weather, and really if the baby and the placenta are ready to let go of each other. And there aren't much studies on
Yeah.
it, but it just felt, when he told me about it, it it felt, it resonated, at a
Yeah.
level that I didn't have words. I didn't have the science to prove if it was going to be of any good, but I wanted to do it. So then I just looked it up, where can I have such a birth in India? And then I found a place in Kerala down south, and I'm up north in Delhi, and I found about a birthing center in Kerala. And then I just write to them, and we arrange for a phone call, and we decide that we are going to go to Kerala to have this baby.
Oh,
And the next 2 months, we were in Kerala. And that's where I had my baby. It was a natural birth, but yeah, I suppose it was still being managed
yep.
in
Yep.
some way.
Okay.
And now that, I've gone through the experience 4 times over, I know that there was a lot that happened. And
Okay.
natural or normal is not just being able to pop that baby out of your vagina. There's just so much more to it.
Right. Right.
And so, yeah,
And
those are the
it,
things that
at this point, you did not know Ganesha Kunde at all. Is that correct?
I just found out about GNM like 6 months ago, maybe.
Okay.
This
So
August.
we're still way before that as far as your
Yes, yes.
path.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me just kind of sum it up now. So I
Yeah.
had my first baby, and then it's the pandemic time, and we decide that we don't want to be in Delhi. We don't want to be stuck up in Delhi during the pandemic. And we'd already lived off a farm with our little baby somewhere close to Pune for about 8 months. So we were changing. So in the last 6 years, we have changed about 6 cities. And yeah, we've
Wow.
lived in different places. And so we go to Goa, we find a midwife there. I have my second child in a pool, which is also a natural birth, but it wasn't completely, now if I say that, for instance, the midwife thought that the baby was breech. And I had never gone for any ultrasound or any checkup, and I didn't want a backup doctor. And I said, if there is an emergency, then treat it like an emergency. I can't prepare in my head for an emergency. That just idea did not fit in.
Yeah.
That you have to be ready for it. You have to be
Right.
prepared for the worst.
Right.
And I
Right.
can't feel that way in my bones right now when I'm carrying this life. How can I prepare for the worst when I'm really
Right.
ecstatic at the moment? You know?
Right. Exactly.
And yeah. So,
Totally.
but anyway, because she thought it was important, so I decided to go. And the doctor, and that was the only time I went to the doctor, and the doctor, without asking me, does an ultrasound. And I really, perhaps that was the only time I cried like that during my pregnancy, because I felt, that boundary was crossed and I wasn't prepared for it.
Yep.
And I was like, so what if it's breech? I mean, even if it is breech, even though babies can turn in labor, I would still want to do it the way nature has designed me to do it. And I'd always keep thinking that what if I was in a jungle, you know, with
Right.
no
Right.
information, no education, no training? This should still be able to happen on its own. And anyway, so that was the second birth. And
Okay.
then soon after, I got pregnant again. And this time, I, m- the news of my pregnancy was really, nobody took it, like in our respective family. No, I wouldn't say my in-laws, but we don't talk so much with my in-laws. Um, but people were like, oh, they probably thought that we don't know how to, we are not into family planning. We don't know how to
Right.
want having
Yep.
babies.
That
This
you
must
don't
be
know
a
about contraception.
Yeah, we don't know about contraception, and this must be a mistake, because anyway, both of neither of us have a constant source of income. We don't have a house. We did not meet the standards
Right.
of,
Right.
yeah, that the society puts on you, that
Right.
before you decide to have babies, you should have all these things ticked off.
Check all the boxes off, right? Got a job, a house, yada, yada, yada. Yeah.
Yes. So we didn't have
You,
that, and we didn't have
okay.
a plan. We
So
didn't have
how was your third pregnancy? How did that go? Mm.
Seas were the most beautiful time. And I have to admit that I have not experienced any symptom. There's not been any dizziness. I've been the most active. I was dancing, I was singing, I had these, and also I'm tandem nursing. So right now I'm currently tandem nursing three of my boys. One
Mhm.
who's almost 4, and the other one is just turned 2, and the youngest is about 9 months old. So I still
Wow.
breastfeed them on demand.
Yep.
And I didn't know that. So the first time around, when my second one was born, and Kyra started, she used to eat everything. She was about 2 years and a couple of months when Kabir was born, and she really got hooked on to breast milk again.
Yep.
And I thought it was something that would pass in a couple of weeks, but she went on and on for months. And in
Mhm.
fact, just when I had a newborn, she ended up putting on like 3 kgs in the first month. So she had those baby cheeks,
Yep. Yep.
and and uh, so so
Amazing.
I did not have any reference point.
Right.
I
Right.
I
You
I,
were
I was
it, it sounds like you were just doing what felt natural to you.
sorry about that. Yeah. So I was just doing what was as things were unfolding.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did you
The
have your third birth? That was at home?
Yeah, that was in Delhi, and I was still in Goa for the large part of my pregnancy, and then I decided to come to Delhi because my brother was uh, coming from Australia with I was going to meet his kids for the first time, and he would see my children for the first
Oh,
time. And I thought I would need some help postpartum, like not with the birth, but I felt like I'd need somebody to be with the older two for some time. So I thought I should be close to family. And even though, like, going back to Delhi did not seem like the wisest decision. It's the most polluted city in the world. It's chaotic, and we live right in the middle of a market, and the kids can't get out, and we have no sunshine,
mm,
So those things, but I thought I needed the support of my family.
yeah.
So I decided to come back,
Okay.
and
So
we had a beautiful birth at home. And I have this independent midwife who came, and she
midwife.
was,
Okay.
yeah, more or less completely hands off. But I had to have the midwife because people were not happy about the idea of me having a birth at home.
Right.
And
Right.
to I could not have proposed that I'm going to do it by myself.
Yep.
So yeah, we had to have her on board, and she was nice. She empowered me. She shared
Oh,
all the resources with me, and
good.
uh, yeah. So that was my third birth. But I now realize that uh, that pregnancy, I went through a lot of now since I have a word for it, self devaluation. I'm going to
Yep.
have to use it, but I went through a lot of it, and even though I was able to nurse all these children all together,
Yeah.
but I thought, because people said, oh, this baby inside is not going to get enough milk, and and this is not fair to the one that you're still feeding.
Oh,
Um, so, kind of started, and I didn't want to get into an argument. So everything just kept piling up inside.
yep.
And there came a moment during my pregnancy when I was feeling very depleted physically, but more emotionally.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm just done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. Like that kind of a feeling.
Yep.
And I remember actually uttering those words that I don't want to breastfeed anymore.
Oh,
And something shifted, I suddenly my milk supply dropped like overnight. And
oh,
that
fascinating.
around the same time she stopped nursing. She was going to turn 5.
Yep.
And so a couple of months short of 5, she stopped nursing, and my second one was still coming and suckling on, for comfort. But the youngest, which was just about, he wasn't a year old at the time, and he really grappled with it. Like he was trying to, switch from one breast to the other. Um, and I guess there was not enough milk, but he
Not
kept
enough.
trying.
Yep.
And now there is enough milk, with the new birth and with everything. But he still switches, because he is now habituated into switching.
Ah,
So,
okay. That's
he's
the third one, right?
the third one.
Okay.
And he's the one who has kind of not grown, like
Oh,
he
interesting.
only started, like he's really tiny. He's really
Yep.
sharp, social and wise and everything, mentally headstrong, but like it felt like he's just kind of his growth stopped at 7 months.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
physical growth.
Physical.
And yeah, and like he only started walking recently, 2 months before he turned 2, which was very strange because and there was a lot of, what did I do wrong? And
So,
so
so at that point, Simon, when you had that feeling like I can't do this anymore, you weaned them all. Is that accurate?
not wean them off. It
Okay.
was just momentary feeling of, feeling like I was thinking,
Yep.
like I felt like I could not do this, that
Yes.
not,
Okay.
I wasn't being just to the baby inside and to all these children outside and to
Right.
myself
Because
and to every.
you were now pregnant with your fourth one. Is that right?
Yeah. I was pregnant with my fourth and
Right.
breastfeeding the other three
Right. Okay.
when
That's a lot.
this happened.
Yes. Got it.
uh, we were constantly, like, from all sides we were being, people just kind of stopped talking to us, and they did not
Interesting.
acknowledge my fourth pregnancy at all. I actually did not receive even those congratulatory messages, and I've been pregnant 4 times over, but I've never had those baby showers or anything. Like, there was, it felt like nobody wanted to celebrate it,
Wow.
and
That is
and it felt real.
fascinating.
Yeah.
And how did you
So
have the fourth one?
yeah, so here's I'm pregnant, and this fourth baby, I'm thinking I'm not ready for it, because by now I'm kind of convinced that this must not be the right decision, but in my body I don't feel that way. Why do I still feel good about this and I can't express that I'm feeling happy about it. So, it's like you can't even express when you're content with yourself.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, and
Yes.
and so it took me a while to express verbally that I was ready for it. But
Yeah.
once I did, there was no going back. But I did it with a kind of a feeling of resentment towards everybody around me, that
Okay.
I'm not supported, nobody cares, but so I'm
Right.
going to do this by myself and I don't really care.
Yep.
And so the decision to free birth was not just out of this feeling of how empowered I feel to do this by myself, which I did probably the second and the third time also,
Yep.
but it was more that I don't want anybody around. I don't need anyone. This is just me and the baby and all my babies, and I'm going to have these babies. So,
Okay. So you
yeah,
had
and
a free birth at home. You and your husband were there and the children?
kids, yeah. And I was
Oh,
staying with my parents, but then again, so the due date came and went by, the so-called due date. And of course, I've not gone for any ultrasounds. There's nothing, I'm not trying to map it out. We are taking as long as it takes. Um, but I felt like it was our sixth anniversary that day,
oh,
and I felt like no, I woke up to there's this really close aunt who she's also an author. She's written several books on pregnancy, and her name is Nutan Pandit. And I got in touch with her during my second pregnancy when my baby was apparently breech. So somebody put me in touch with her, and I had been kind of off and on touch with her. When I woke up in the morning, I just randomly got a message from her. Would you like to have, just would you like to talk?
yeah.
And she probably felt it somewhere, and I immediately grabbed that opportunity, and we 2 hours later we had a session on the phone, like
Yeah.
a releasing session. We had something called cutting the cord exercise. We visualized, and I felt like I was holding so much against so many people for not supporting me. And in the end, it came to this feeling that Allah is like, God is, you know, like all around me. I'm in his embrace. And he tells me, why do you need anyone else? I've
Mm.
always, I've loved you enough, and but not in a bad way. Why do you? So there's a lot of forgiveness,
Yep.
there's a lot of compassion that it's nobody's fault.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, the way they feel also about this, about because we live in very toxic times, there's stress, there's a lot of drama. And so, I mean, suddenly there was this release, and I ended up shedding a lot of tears, and I felt so light. And I went into labor the next morning and had the most beautiful birth
Oh my
ever.
gosh.
So, this baby did not want to come to the world with his mother feeling this way,
Right.
holding so
Right.
much. Yeah. I
You
mean,
know,
I look. Yeah, sorry, go
it
on.
is that is it's such an amazing story because I look at how you really listen to yourself some in so many ways and you didn't like that the others didn't acknowledge you for sure, but you decided I'm going to do this. You reached out, you got some help from somebody who really could touch your spirit and help you with that. And then you had a beautiful birth all by yourself, and it just amazes me because that is the opposite of what I hear most women have as birth stories. All the expectations that are on us. We have to do this, we have to do that, we have to do this next. And it's so crowded. The birth experience now is so crowded with that. And it sounds to me like you just cleared away all those cobwebs and you just did what you needed to do. And it worked beautifully.
Yeah,
Love
Alhamdulillah, with
that.
God's grace. And so my daughter was with me in the pool, and my other son, and they all touched when the head came out, and it was just so, it was
Oh,
just, and I was completely. I have to say that it's not like you lose it. It's like you're birthing unmedicated in
right,
that way, that
right.
very primal way. is your opportunity to actually kind of meet God. It
Yes.
is so,
Yes.
it could be so addictive.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Yes.
so empowering.
Yeah.
It's like I'm
Yeah.
here, but I'm also everywhere else. It's like, like you just expand
Right.
in so
Right.
many
Exactly.
ways.
I
And
love
it's,
that. I love that.
yeah,
Let's bring GHK into this. Where does that
and
fit in here, Salmon?
exactly after my fourth birth, suddenly I had a really bad stomach. Like my stomach got upset, and I
This
had these loose
after the fourth birth?
after, like
After
postpartum, yeah.
postpartum.
And I thought, and I've never fallen sick in the last 6 7 years or something when I've been pregnant or whatever.
Yeah.
I've Yeah, I've not fallen sick or whatever, but I started getting unwell, and I wasn't so sure what changed because this was apparently my most empowered
Right.
birthing experience. So where are the symptoms coming from, And
Right.
then my mother was not keeping that well, and my brother, he calls from abroad and he says that, suddenly, like, he tells my father to give the phone to me, and I it wasn't expected, so I'm still living at my parents' house in Delhi where I had the baby, the free birth. But he says to me that the our mother is not doing well because of me, because of all the workload, because of the children, and that I I am not I I don't have he said it in a different language, so I don't know how to translate it, but he said that you just don't have it in you to, look after these babies by yourself, something like that. And
Oh,
he and
wow.
he and he's never spoken to me like that. So when he said it, it all happened like within like 10 seconds of conversation that he said all this, and I was dumbfounded. Yeah, like I went silent. And
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant. Like it really, now that we have the word for it, it really took me off guard. Like I
Right.
wasn't expecting, like,
Right.
fine, the you don't acknowledge my pregnancy, you don't congratulate me, you're not there to celebrate,
Right.
but hold me responsible and to tell me that, and to tell me, yeah, and he asked me to get out of the house. And
Wow. Oh, this is all in one
yeah,
conversation?
in like 15 seconds.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Because I couldn't respond to that, and I just gave the phone away. And I went about my work because I have a newborn, I have a toddler, I have two other, yeah, really small children around me, and there's just so much that I have to do. Three of them I'm nursing on demand, and I also have to kind of want to at least look after my mother and look after myself, and and it was just so much, and I decided that I have to leave the house, because I don't want to add to anybody's trouble. And I kind of, my first reaction, I think I felt like there was a lot of anger. I was
Mhm.
like, how could he say that to me?
Yeah.
That,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it went much deeper, it was like I felt abandoned. Like
Right.
I felt there was no air. And for the first time, as I was leaving my mother's house to be with my in-laws, suddenly I tell my husband that I'm not able to breathe and something is happening, and I have this huge migraine attack, and
Mm.
I
Okay.
can't make sense of it. And yeah, and we check my blood pressure, and I've never done that before, and it's high when it's always been on the, I've always had low blood pressure,
Yeah.
so it's really really high. And
Wow.
I just asked for my mother. I just wanted her to sit next to me, and I just wanted her to stroke my head
Yeah.
as I
Yeah.
went to sleep. And I was asleep for an hour, and I was fine. I woke up absolutely fine. There was no headache. There was no, the
Okay.
symptoms were gone.
Good.
And
Good.
then and we had a train to catch. So, I'm again in the action mode and with all the kids and, with the last minute packing and this and that. And we arrived to my, and then suddenly, as I brushed my hair, my hair's just coming off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I almost went bald like in 3 weeks. This is all new hair, by the way. I
Oh
mean,
my
it just
gosh.
filled in. This is all. Can you see the
Okay.
tiny hair?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. This is all new hair which has come. But this was all an entire bald patch on both
Wow.
sides.
Okay.
I'm really talking of chunks of hair were coming off.
Chunks of hair. Okay.
This is I'm 4 months postpartum, and so I start looking it up, and I'm like, what's happening? And when I look at then Karan had been so now I have to bring in my husband. I should have done that long time ago in my conversation, but he has a very interesting background too. So the he's actually born in a family where it's a the main business of the family business is of pharmaceuticals, and his
Oh,
own brother's a doctor, like a specialized surgeon doctor, and
okay.
uh, and he grew up with that, but he is the one who inspired me to kind of walk this path of looking within and
Right.
yeah, this innate healing, and he's been practicing that, and you would probably know him. His name is Karan. Karan, he keeps sharing these articles on the
Okay.
GHK.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. And he has been kind of really putting everything together, integrating, and spontaneous remission of any kind of disease, and faith healing, and that you don't need anything, you just need to
Yep.
kind of really want it to heal from
Mm,
within.
right.
And so
And this
so
this
that's
is your husband we're talking about?
yeah, yeah, my husband.
Okay. All right, got it. So
Yeah.
did he find Göttingen Heilkunde first?
Knew about German new medicine for a long time, but we remember I told you we don't talk.
Right,
So
right.
we never spoke about it because I was not receptive to it. I was like, even though he's really invested into looking after the children, he's
Yeah,
really into doing everything right. He didn't use a phone for
right.
2 years when our daughter was born, and he's like, no, our children have not been exposed to any screens. He's the one who cooks for them. He bathes them. He massages them. He's completely, if a baby falls asleep on his hands, he's not going to move for like 4 hours. and and
He's
my children,
amazing.
I could say that safely, and I'm not feeling bad when I say that they only come to me for the milk. They
Yeah.
go for if they fall, they go to him. If they want to sleep and be hugged and want to play, they all just rush to him.
Okay.
You
All
know,
right. So he's a nurturing person.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a very nurturing person, but I thought he was absent as a partner. And I was like, you're healing the world and you're there for the kids, but what about me? And I'm already,
Okay.
playing
Yep.
that nobody loves me, nobody is there to support me, and so I would just not allow him to come close. And when read about separation conflict the first time, I thought it was my need to just want to separate from him, that I need my space. You don't acknowledge me enough. You don't value me enough. I've done so much, and you're always just saying that you can do better. So how much more can I give of myself? you
Right.
know
Right.
so there was that kind of a feeling. But anyway, this German new medicine thing, when it happened, and he's the one who said, there's an Indian doctor that maybe you can talk to. And I was like, okay, fine. I don't even find the time to take a shower by myself. So where am I going to find the time to, speak to somebody?
Right.
And he
Right.
said, no. Yeah, but because he could see how distressed I was because of
Right.
this, all this hair that has fallen out. And so I speak to Dr. Varghese, and I'm like, I think it's because my husband doesn't value me, and I want to just separate from him. So this separation conflict is happening. That's how I interpreted it. And he said, so has your husband changed since marriage? I said, no. So he was like, so was he always like this?
Mhm.
I was saying that he's very blunt in your face, he would just, So he was like, was he always like this? I said, yeah. So I said, then he may not have triggered this, because he's always been like that. So why is the hair reacting to it at this point of time? what happened just now, in the trajectory. And then when I told him that this happened, that's how, we put the pieces together, that it was, for the first time, I felt like, so I told you that we have been moving all these cities and different houses and different people, and but my parents' house has always been my safe place. It's a
Okay.
2-century-old house,
Yep.
literally, and it's like it is the place that I always fall back to.
Yep.
My house. That's what's written on all the documents. That's
Yep.
what I feel deep inside. And when somebody told me to get out of that house, I felt uprooted.
Yep.
And that made complete sense.
Sure.
And then I was so mind boggled. Oh my God, something just opened up for me. And I was like, I have to heal myself, heal
Ah,
everything that has been piling on. And that I'm also now projecting onto my children, because I could see some very similar patterns.
yep.
They want to see, like, my daughter would not cry in front of me. And that would break my heart,
Wow.
because I would, because she's not expressing herself, you know
Yep.
because I've also been conditioned into not asking for help,
Right.
not
Right.
uh, yeah, and
Yes.
just
And our
sacrifice and sit within. And she's the eldest of four of them, so yeah, she's the elder sister, so she always has to kind of hold back.
yep.
She was the most sensitive one, always looking after. If Karan and I were having an argument, she would never interfere. She'd be the one looking after the children.
Yep. So
Very,
she was kind of picking up on your behavior and modeling your behavior.
that was so freaky.
Yeah. Okay.
That was so sad.
So does it
I
sound like when you started learning Ganesha Kunde, you started connecting things that you had never connected before?
came up, which now this is the part where all this parenting thing comes in with German new medicine. So Karan and I are having an argument. I'm like, I can't do this anymore, and I'm just gonna walk out. And I pick up one baby and I tell her that I'm sorry, I have to go now, and I'm gonna come back for you. And this thing would have lasted like a minute or two. And she didn't even react to it at that point. She was again, looking after everybody, all the children, the crying baby, and mama picking up her stuff. And then she fell ill soon after
Um,
that. And she had this pus boil on her left buttock. And then I was, of course, now reading up on everything GNM.
yep.
And I knew it had come from what I said. It
Yep.
was a very real thing in those few seconds that I said, I'll have to go,
Yep.
you know. And so then at that point, I remember again praying to Allah that I I really want her to express herself.
Yep.
I don't want her to hold back. I don't want her to please. I don't want her to please me. This is not the version of my daughter that I think I'll be able to endure.
Yep.
And I really prayed and clicked. That was a moment. And suddenly she's asking, everything that she had been kind of suppressing since she was 2. Now suddenly she wants me to do her hair, and she wants me to give her a bath, and she wants, and she's like, no, I'm not going to listen to you. And I was taken aback by that too, because I'm not used to her not being receptive to my requests.
Right. Right.
And then I have to tell myself, no, that she's not holding back. She's expressing herself. She's finding her ground. This is
Okay.
her. You know,
Yeah.
can you see the? So it wasn't easy for me to accept that version of her also,
So it was a
because
different, you're saying that it's like it's a different version of who you thought she was or who you thought she should be?
she was kind of trying to please me, or,
Yep.
be the one to restore the balance of the chaos.
Yep.
And but then she started expressing herself. She said, no, I don't want to look after the baby right now.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
want to. I don't want to not wear this dress. I'm just gonna wear this dress for the rest of the day. And I said, please don't wear it. Wear it when you're going out. And she's like, no, I'm just gonna wear it, even if you don't like it. And I'm not used to being answered back
I see.
by her. And
So
so suddenly
what was that like for you?
started developing symptoms, like there's left foot arch pain that I'm feeling, I'm feeling not stable, not valued by my, in that by my molars start hurting
Oh my gosh.
suddenly.
Was this all on your left side?
Left side, yes.
And you're right dominant?
Yes, I'm right dominant. So I
Well,
knew
you're
that
your
it had
mother
to do with
child
my
side.
children. Yeah, and I knew that it has to do with me feeling inadequate of providing for them
Oh,
and them not adhering to my so-called authority as a mother or not respecting me enough, and that I've done everything for them, and
yeah,
yet
right.
I get answered back, and I thought she was my only support, and now even she's not there,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that then I started developing different kinds of symptoms,
yeah,
and then it was just like that. Like I would say something to my father in a message that I've been holding back for years, and the same night I develop a sore throat. But I bring my awareness to it, and the next morning it's gone.
okay.
And I have this, and she has this, or I have this tie on the eye, which is just coming up. And I look it up, what this is my right eye, and this is the upper lid, and this could mean this. And, I just bring my emotional awareness to it, and it stops growing.
Yep,
Otherwise, I would have had to go through the entire cycle of it really forming into a pus and then releasing itself. I
yep.
was not taking medicines, but things would take a while to resolve. And then they would keep repeating.
Oh,
So, this knowledge, GHK, has helped me break that. I can now just
okay.
snap out of a situation like that.
Right. So it's given you a whole new awareness and insights into your actions, your behaviors, your family's actions, behaviors, and how that influences you, for sure, conflict shocks, and thus what symptoms occur. And it sounds like
Absolutely.
once you figure it out, it just starts to dissipate.
That's right. Like we were traveling, and all of us as a family, and we were going from one place to another just a couple of months ago. And so I remember we had taken a flight and we reached Calcutta like in the middle of the night, and everybody was damn tired. And I'm still nursing three of them to sleep, So as we reach my friend's house, and she's meeting me for the first time in 10 years. So she's meeting my family for the very first time, and she's trying to make all of us feel comfortable. And then
Right.
while I'm nursing the youngest, she just picks up the third one and takes him around the house. And the baby, and she had a dog, and it's middle of the night and we are all tired, and the baby really barks at my 2-year old,
Yep.
and we can hear him crying, and we are
Oh,
in the other room just settling in, and I'm nursing a baby, so we can't reach out to him like instantly. So he's in a strange place in a stranger's arms, and there's this huge dog who just barked at him,
oh
and
man.
he develops a pus boil right on the neck,
Yep.
you know
Yep.
huge, humongous.
Oh my
Like if
gosh.
I had taken him for any scan, they would have really made something else out of it. And
Absolutely.
the people who could see it were like, and we had to keep reminding ourselves and remind everybody else that don't look at it with that view. He's healing,
Right.
you know,
Right. Right.
the deep fright conflict, and being not feeling safe, not knowing whether you're going to survive this attack or
Right.
not.
Right. Exactly. A big dog for a little boy. That's a hard one. That's a life and death situation.
There's no scar, nobody can make out it formed, and there was a lot
Right.
of pus, and there was a lot of blood, and it was huge, but it went away.
It went away.
And
So
that's how we heal. That's how we do it.
that's how you do it. So it just sounds your journey has been amazing, Salmon. Just listening so much to your inner voice, your inner intuition on what is the right thing for you to do, and then birthing your babies the way that you did. And then finding Gemenische Heilkunde and utilizing that. It's just like another level of expertise as you, as a parent, as a person on this planet, and knowledge to help your children. It's an amazing story. Is there
And
anything else you'd like to add?
it's just interesting that you use this word expertise. And I'm glad you did, because I was just reading a book and they, for the first time, because if you look it up on Google, they'd say an expert is somebody who's a highly knowledgeable person on something. But when you really find out the root, it comes
Yep.
from Latin, the word, and it means somebody who has tried something.
So please try some. I love it.
So I know I'm trying. And
Yes.
all those people who have been telling me, how can you say this? You're not no expert.
Right, right.
I
Oh,
don't want to be an expert. I'm saying this because I'm not that expert. I'm not fixed to an idea, an ideology. I'm
yeah,
letting life unfold and tell me what it means. And we have to live with a lot of uh, very difficult decisions to make. You
mm,
know, I may
right.
be a stay-at-home mom of 4 children,
Yeah,
but I have very difficult decisions to make, whether to comfort a newborn who's hungry or a 3-year-old who needs comfort.
right,
Who am I going to choose in that moment? Because I know that whoever is crying is making me feel there are these sensations inside my body, which is very, I panic. It's almost like I can't breathe if I hear my children cry.
right, right, right,
Also, we crying because of each other, because they went into a fight. So who am I going to pick up first?
right,
But I want to be able to comfort all of them without feeling guilty, because that is also going to have an impact.
right.
You know,
Exactly,
it's all
exactly.
so connected,
It's
but so fascinating.
Isn't life amazing? Well, the other thing I want to point out though is that what we talk about a lot here in North America is that we don't live biologically anymore. We don't live in small communities, multi-generations under one roof or in one small settlement, if you will, all helping each other. And we just don't live that way. We live much more isolated away from our families. Sometimes, a 5-hour plane ride to our nearest family member. And that's just not normal. And parents work. If both parents are working full time, the kids are in daycare. That's what's common here. We just don't live biologically, and we look at the impact of our children of that kind of lifestyle versus your lifestyle, where you may not know in that moment, okay, which child do I respond to first? But you are with them and they are seeing you respond, whether it's to them or to their sibling. It's a whole different experience for them than it is for our kids here. So I want to applaud you, Salmon.
Thank you, Andy. It means a lot coming from you, but I have to admit that, I mean, what you just described is also the one conflict that we feel every day and we are not able to resolve. Because, like, I remember both my parents were working, and my mother probably just breastfed me for 2 months. And she had a stillbirth before I was born, and 3 years later she had me, and she chose for a surgery. And then she had my brother, who also birthed via a C-section. So her notions about birth were very traumatic.
Yeah.
But as she would leave for work, she would leave me with my her mother, and that was the only surviving grandparent I had. And
Um,
my grandmother had had like several children at home, just, and and the way she would describe it, like I was cleaning the house and pop came out the baby, and I was making chapatis and pop came out the baby, and that is the impression that remained, you know.
that is fabulous that you had that image at a young age.
Yeah, and that is what inspired me to have the kind of birds that I wanted.
Right.
And even though I'm very close to my mother, I kind of did not want her to be a part of my any of my labors,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
when I was in labor, because I didn't want to focus on somebody else
Right. Right.
at that point, because everybody who comes into the room can bring in their own energy, and
Right.
I wasn't
Exactly.
sure about it.
And you're not exactly you're in a fairly, I'll say, vulnerable position. I don't know if that's the right word, but you are needing a certain surroundings around you. You're doing an important job. You're birthing a baby.
Yeah, so I just wanted to be centered on myself. But
Yeah.
right now, like when I'm choosing to be with, and thankfully my kids have both sets of grandparents alive, and I think it's a huge thing. So Karan's parents and my parents, so we keep hopping between, living with them for a few weeks and then coming here and living with the other set for a few weeks and then traveling for a few weeks. So this is what how our life has been for the
Yeah.
past couple of years. But like we feel, but everybody here does not adhere to our ways of living for sure.
Right.
And so there's a constant, um, conflict of sorts,
Right.
in a way.
Right.
So we know that
Get that.
current insisting that we need to be amongst like-minded people
Yep.
in a community which gets us, because
Yes.
these years are very crucial.
Yes.
Uh, and but I keep saying that family, there's no substitute for family, and there's nobody who can really love them the way their grandparents can. And
Mm.
I just want them to be able to spend some time with them, you know, because you never know how transient life is.
Right. Exactly.
So that
Exactly.
keeps coming up every day, and
I
we
have no
haven't reached.
I have no doubt you will figure that out as time goes on. You will make the decisions that will work best for your family.
Inshallah.
Yes.
But can I mention one last thing before? I
Sure.
don't know how far along are we in the
Yep.
in our
We're
has
we're
it been
at
an
the
hour?
let's just
Yeah,
let's do
yeah,
a
yeah.
little ending here.
I have to say that um, in all of this, a very important thing that has kept us grounded, humble, also sane in a lot of ways is our faith. You know, I may not be really practicing the rituals,
Yep.
but me and my husband are very attuned to that higher power
Yep.
that you call God. Some people call nature, some people call that universal consciousness,
Yep.
Allah. And if we were not, I don't think we would be able to do any of this,
Right. Right.
because we know that we can't be. I know when all of them are engaging in certain things like jumping from the bed and doing the going up the stairs without knowing how to come back down, and or just pulling each other's hair, and one is crying and the other one is unwell, and or when we are fighting, I don't know, I don't think I can really look after them. So I have to keep reminding myself every day that
Yep.
it is God,
Yep.
and he has trusted us with these children. They've come through us, but they don't belong to us. That Khalil Gibran poem on,
Yep.
on children from the Prophet, that
Right.
your children are not your children.
Right.
They are sons and daughters of life's longing for
Right.
itself. They've come through you, but they don't belong to you.
Right.
And that is just how it is. So you have to keep reminding yourself that even though we are uh, doing all this inner work, battling our own demons, which
Yep.
is the hardest kind of activism that I've ever engaged in.
It is. Yes.
But I still don't know if these children are going to be with us for very long in that sense, or value us or whatever. Like we have to do it unconditionally, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. So, and
Yeah.
Allah is guiding us through it. He's healing us. He's the one
Yes.
who's connected all of us together.
Right.
And I can be more grateful.
And I just think I love that because you're listening within. That's how we hear what our next steps are, right? God, divine, whatever you want to call that creative source of the universe. And it is that which created Ganesha Heilkund, it created nature, created us. We are all divine. Every cell in our body is divine. And we forget that. We believe what we're told out here. And
Yeah.
if we can just get back to our inner faith in ourself and in that extra higher power that is all around us, I think we get closer to what Dr. Hammer found, what he discovered about us. And that's a full cycle right there. That's a full circle as well. That's all we need.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Saman. This has been
Thank you.
wonderful. Wonderful
Thank
conversation. And I hope we have a lot of parents who listen to this who start to really listen inside to their inner voice, to their inner selves. And instead of listening to the doubts and the fears around them. One other thing I wanted to say is a lot of parents are so afraid of doing things wrong and having their children experience conflict shocks because of them. And I just want to say that if we're in alignment and doing the best we can at all times, then we can't prevent that, but we can create the atmosphere that resolves it quickly and they can move on with their lives as well. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. I'm very, very glad that you brought this up. You probably would know about Mahatma Gandhi.
Yes.
Um and as I was growing up, I had read his autobiography, My Experiments with Truth. And there was an excerpt where a journalist was asking his wife, Kasturba Gandhi, that how does your husband talk for hours and hours like this extempore, spontaneously without fumbling, and he was such a powerful orator. He
Yeah.
changed the world with
Yeah.
his words. And she said to that she responded, because he's integrated in his thoughts, in his speech and his actions,
Yeah.
and that is so important.
Yes.
So earlier, I think I used to get really hung up on, oh my God, I scolded my son because he was, and I would justify it that he was doing this and this, but I was really mean to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I would go on a guilt trip, and like, what kind of a mother would do that? And then
Right.
we would be like, you're being a hypocrite, you're talking about these things, but you're not really practicing it. But you have to really, really just
Mhm.
calm down that old behavioral patterns and those
Yeah.
conditionings which are not working for you anymore. They're not serving anyone.
Right.
And you have to, and then I realized that if I would just sincerely, with all my heart, apologize to him or
Yep.
my daughter after having said something that I regret, they would be like, I love you. I
Right.
love you, mama. I love
There's
you
the
even when
solution
you're mad at
right
me.
there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's so beautiful.
So beautiful. Yes. I
we
love that.
can't we can't guarantee that we are not going to pass on all this trauma that we have been carrying, but that's okay. One step at a time,
Right.
breaking one cycle at a
Exactly.
time.
Exactly. That's all we can do.
Oh,
Oh, beautiful little girl. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been wonderful, Sam, and thank you so much for sharing your story and your insights. I think this is going to be well received by many parents out there as well. Thank you for listening to your inner self, and thank you for being that rebel as well.
thank you. Thank
Oh,
you, Andy.
you're so
And I
welcome.
hope we have many conversations.
Yes.
I know that you teach GHK so passionately, and I'd love to learn from you, both me and my husband.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
We all need to learn from each other. I learn just as much from my students and clients as anyone. So we're all in this together, and that's what I want to emphasize is that together we are stronger.
Yeah.
Salmon, you have a wonderful rest of your evening. All right. And I look forward to speaking to you again and a great big goodbye to your little girl as well.